Hello, good evening, and welcome to the War Room. This is day 23 of Russia's illegal incursion into the Ukraine. This is your daily source of your timeline of what had happened today for essentially what most people are calling World War III without calling it World War III. I've got my panelists that I'll bring in here shortly. I've got a lot of stories for you. And I've got an explanation of why we started a little bit late, just because it took me a while to get home today. I had a lot of honeydews on a Friday evening, so I do apologize for the slightly late start, but daylight savings time. I'll just lean on that as an excuse. Not really. I just had a lot of stuff to do. I'm sorry. But anyway, thank you all for joining today. I usually have my viewers file in slightly later, but I say good evening to Terry Share and Fine Ape, the finest of apes. And typically, as I've seen throughout the days and weeks, people tend to file in later because, well, truth be told, oh yeah, Shady Hill started way before I even got in here. Um, People just tend to file in after the fact just because I sort of cork other shows. If you don't know what corking is, it's an old, really old Gun Channels term for a guy that I haven't seen probably in 5 or 6 years at least, Mr. Quark. If you're still alive out there, well, good evening to you, sir. But nobody knows what the hell happened to you, so it is what it is. I'm currently fighting the most heinous of allergies today, even though it was gorgeous and barely 70 degrees. And no, I did not get to go enjoy the weather. But I did get to eat before the show, which is rare, which means I don't have to complain about a bowl of Fruit Loops at the end of it. And it looks like my panelists have begun filing in, which is fantastic. And I think I've got one new one today that I don't think you've got to hear much from, just because of his schedule. So anyway, we've got some stories for you today. It was actually, I don't know if I want to describe it like this, but it was kind of a quiet news day, just because of how ridiculous the the stories I do have today were. For instance, you may notice that there's a really strange photo for the War Room today, and I'm going to draw some comparisons to a movie that was released in 1935 called Triumph of the Will. And if you've never seen it, you should probably give it a gander, because in the annals of history, it's monumental. And I think what Vladimir Putin had done today sort of runs in parallel with the propagandist ridiculousness of what he's pulling today. Also, what you may notice is I did update the scroller, and I gotta be honest, the scroller information source that I use is the Kiev Independent, which obviously they are the defender, but they feel as if they're winning. So their numbers are elevated, inflated. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because I'm not in theater on the ground. It could just be based on the number of reports they got. There may be duplicates, but typically, what I've noticed is their numbers compared to, say, the UK Ministry of Defense, compared to, say, the UN and NATO, and even the Russian sources, um, tend to be a little higher. But we'll forgive them because any morale boost that they can have for their people who have been fighting for their lives for the last 3 weeks and 2 days, I think they get a pass. Anything that'll help boost their morale because those poor guys are exhausted. Anyway, we've got a lot to cover, like I said. We've got that photo. We've also got to discuss a 2-hour phone call between the President of the United States and the, quote, President for Life, Xi Jinping, which I believe accomplished absolutely nothing. I'm going to try to stay as objective as possible about this without becoming too ranty. I don't know. I can't rant today. My whole sinuses are plugged up. Anyway, let's go ahead and start bringing in my panelists because you didn't hear me do it. You don't here to hear me do intros. So my first guy, my student up in the West Coast, the rancher out in California. This is Jaime
That
Zaporozhia. He's also the reason that I'm about to buy a Polish WBP AK called the Fox model. It's got a
is
stud on the rear trunnion so I can mount a barrel uh, pick rail uh, optic adapter mount, I guess you can call it. Does that ring a bell to any of you?
yes.
Okay, so that's what I'm buying. I'm
Yes.
buying a WBP Fox. So it's got that little stud in the back. And then I gotta spend another $200 to get that optics Picatinny rail top cover. And then I gotta buy an optic for it. And I've gotta buy a Fostech Echo trigger for it because I gotta flex on Jaime, who's got a Polish AK, who sort of helped convince me to get one. I mean, mine's already going to be cooler because it doesn't have a stupid California fin on it. But I thought I would like triple flex, no fin, top rail, and an echo trigger. Yeah. Good evening to you, sir.
Good. How about you, man?
I'm
Just
fine.
finished up. Just finished up with the pig. So
Really?
yeah.
Tell the
Yep.
good people what you named said pig.
I said name this pig Putin, and
Yeah.
now Putin's about to be bacon.
Yeah, because you went and you were shooting Putin.
Quite literally, I invaded and I got Putin.
Oh, speaking of, for those of you who don't know, there's a guy out there on the internet. His name is Retro Gamer 3 on YouTube. His real name, he doesn't hide it, is Ed Finley. He lives out in Vancouver, Canada. He's also a conservative, so that's kind of rare for Vancouver. Anyway, I pitched him an idea because he does the job that I wish I could do, and I can't. But if I could, I would do it. He modifies and resto mods games from our past into his own vision of like fan made sequels or, just a new version of an old game. And he did this game a couple years ago called America's Retribution, where he essentially took the Bad Dudes game, ninjas kidnap the president. Are you a bad enough dude to rescue him? That game? Well, he did something similar where the main characters were President Trump and Pence, and obviously you had to kill a bunch of libtards, including Hillary. Anyway, I pitched him an idea a few days ago, and I'm like, you know what would be great if you could take Wolfenstein 3D, which was ported over to Super Nintendo, and I was like, it'd be great if you could take that and reskin it, where BJ, your main character, you get the little icon at the bottom, would be a pixelated version of Vladimir Zelensky. And instead of breaking out of a Russian or a German concentration camp, you would break out of a gulag, and then you would try to rescue um, Alexei Navalny, who's the opposition that's been who's a political prisoner that Putin tried to poison and radiate and kill. He's still alive. Be like, yeah, you break out of a gulag, you rescue him, and then you go kill Putin. Well, I got an answer, and he loved the idea because there's a Canadian restaurant that had actually changed the name of a Canadian staple called poutine, which is French fries with cheese curds and brown gravy, and you can sprinkle a little salt and pepper on it, and it's amazing. It's like a hot roast beef sandwich, just with no roast beef, right? It's really good in certain places, depending on who makes it. I make a pretty good one. But they changed the name of poutine to a dish in the honor of the inventor of French fries, cheese curds, and gravy because people were getting triggered by the name poutine, thinking that it was named after Vladimir Putin. So I told him, I was like, wouldn't it be great if we make this game and, in Wolf 3D, you gain your health back by grabbing food, right? And I was like, make the food poutine. And then run around and rescue Navalny and kill a bunch of dirty Russians and then, take out Putin at the end of the game, and then just, reskin everything. And I told him I would do it, but by the time I finished it, it'd be World War V, right? So I was like, I defer this to you. Well, the problem is he thought it was a great idea, but because this is his job now, he said, I really can't do it because America's Retribution got me in a lot of trouble on Steam, and cancel culture more or less killed me from doing that. So he can't do it. I understand, because it's a business for him. He gave up his day job to do this. Anyway, he's working on a new remaster of Castlevania 3, for those of you who grew up same era I did. And I can't wait, because I had a hand in this, like adding a bunch of content to that, and I had a hand in a bunch of content to two of his other games. So I'm super stoked. Like, I'm an ideas guy. He can make it happen way better than I can, even though I was an IT guy most of my life. I defer it to the expert. Anyway, if I'm ever in Vancouver, I will drink a beer with that dude, but it won't be some Molson Ice bullshit. Canadian beer. So, my next panelist is going to be my tradesman up in New England, AK guy, dude who seems strangely addicted to all things green. This is Scottish Naya, also known as Scott P79 from what used to be Gun Channels. So, good evening to you. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to tell you where these guys are from, but Missouri, and I forgot to ask where Deagleton's from. Anyway, so now I've got Mr. FNH, and I've got Desert Deagleton. So we have a full panel for you today. And typically the way this goes is we read the stories off to you at the time intervals that they came out in, and we pass it around the room if it's something that's worth discussing. And then typically towards the end, if there's anything that I had missed because something else had came out by the time I cut off my stories for the day, then we can go ahead and cover those too. Cool? Let's do it. Sorry, I'm rescaling things. I just noticed it was a little off. My OCD's bugging me. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and pick up yesterday where we left off. I think I touched on this, but there was an update. It was around 2 a.m., 5 minutes to 2 or so, which in India, Mumbai, would be 12:55 p.m. So, like, when I went to bed, India was already halfway through its business day. And this story does come out of Mumbai, which used to be known as Bombay. And it says that the state-run Indian Oil Corporation had bought 3 million barrels of crude oil from Russia earlier this week to secure its energy needs, resisting Western pressure to avoid such purchases. An Indian government official had disclosed today. Oh, Pink made it in time. Cool. And I noticed Al did too. Sorry about that. I forgot the shoutouts. The official said India has not imposed sanctions against buying oil and will be looking to purchase more from Russia, despite calls not to from the U.S. and other countries. The official spoke on the condition of anonymity, as he was not authorized to talk to reporters. So basically, India has a narc, and that narc said, we bought 3 million barrels of oil from Russia at a heavy discount because, well, we need the oil, we need energy. And one of the things that I may have discussed prior, a couple of days ago, was it's a blessing and a curse. You see, the problem with being a country that is an oil exporter like Russia is that you will always have a buyer. And that kind of screws with trying to sanction them. Because we stopped buying it, and most of the world did. But there comes a time where, obviously, they're going to be like, look, we know oil is at $110 a barrel right now. I haven't checked the latest figure. I'm just using this as just an example. Say they're selling oil at $10 or $110 a barrel on the market. Russia has no takers, nor do they have tanker ships to move it, because the shipping companies don't want to take the risk of being locked down in customs and sanctioned. So they say, "Hey, India, buddy, I know you're a emerging nation here, and we know that you're trying to modernize and build your own domestic navy because you've upgraded and you've been, leasing our nuclear submarines, and we know you've been building like this conglomerate hodgepodge aircraft carrier, like a greatest hit, so to speak, of, you know, our jets with American propulsion and British radar and, stuff like that. You're going to need oil. You're going to need energy. Tell you what, we will hook you up and we'll sell it to you for $75 a barrel. Now, let's be honest. If somebody called you and said, "Hey man, you know that new Colt Anaconda that Pwnery had such a hard time getting his hands on, that he paid $1,950 for to get?" Tell you what, I know you're not supposed to be dealing with me because I'm a dirty Russian, but I'll sell you one for 900. We'll keep this on the low low, right? You would be a fool not to buy it. But you have a narc brother-in-law, and that narc brother-in-law just told the world, "Hey, my brother-in-law just bought an anaconda for $900." Even though the world said don't buy it from them. Well, the only way we could have stopped this is if we were energy independent ourselves. We could have just said, "Look, India, we need oil, you need oil, we got you covered. We produce plenty here. We're back to our next net exporter ways. How about it?" Now, they could say no because we're going to give it to them at market value, but at least that would have been another option. Since they didn't have one, they took the deal. My problem with this is we've been talking about countries who refused to stop doing business in Russia. And because they stopped doing business in Russia, cancel culture went nuts on them. For instance, who was it? Who was it that was going to buy oil last time? Was it British Petroleum? No, Shell. Shell was going to buy oil from Russia about 2.5 weeks ago. That was when oil was at, I think, $120 a barrel, and they brokered a deal where they would have got it for 89. And then Shell put out this bogus public statement about, "We reluctantly had to buy this oil." No, you didn't. Like, cancel culture went crazy on them. They reneged on the deal within 12 hours. They were like, "Sorry, Russia, we can't do it." India is now doing the same thing. Will cancel culture put their boot up their ass? I guess that's yet to be seen. We'll probably know by Monday. But then again, they're an emerging nation. They need the energy. Russia can give it to them without tankers. They can do it by rail or by truck, which would be perilously expensive. But they could still do it. Sure would be a shame if something happened to that convoy on the way to India, though. Just saying. All right, let's move on. About the same time, we're going to move back over to theater. So it's about 8:55 in the morning in Ukraine. And I do have a picture for you of this because you need to see it. This is just a tweet that announced it. But don't worry, I've got an update from this story with an actual photo. Russian airstrike hit near Lviv's airport Friday morning. This came from Mayor Andriy Sadovy. That's who that guy is. The mayor said that the airport itself was not hit, but he said an airplane repair facility was destroyed, but no one was inside because work had stopped at the building for the day, obviously, because it was super early in the morning. Now, I wanted to expand on this, but I've got an update to this, so we're just going to close this one. We'll get to it here in a second because the next story actually covers this. But this was 18 hours ago when this hit. So they were like, "Oh, it was near this airport in Lviv, right?" This was like, what's the word I'm looking for? Initial reports. Okay. So about 4 hours later, there was an update to it. Now here's this photo. That's what they woke up to. This is what they saw when you woke up in Lviv. Russian troops launched an airstrike Friday morning that destroyed an airplane and bus repair facilities. This was near Lviv's international airport in western Ukraine. The mayor said that the airplane facility was empty and there was no reported casualties. The Russians had launched 6 missiles from the Black Sea. Each one, they were called S-550s, I think. Each one cost over $1 million. So it's basically like their version of a Tomahawk. 2 of which were shot down by air defenses, but 4 got through because this particular missile has low altitude flight capability, which makes it very difficult to track and then shoot down. So 4 hit the target, 2 got shot down. So they made an effort. It's just, it still had a 66% effective rate, clearly, and it still destroyed the target. Now, what makes this target particularly unique is, well, did I write that down? Oh no, I put it in the description. So what makes that target kind of unique, those of you who played Grand Theft Auto 5, this is going to sound very familiar to you. They had destroyed Lviv's equivalent of Los Santos customs. And I know you're probably quirking an eyebrow going, what? This particular facility is where the Ukrainian military would get their imported MiGs customized and converted for use for the Ukrainian Air Force. Now, is it starting to settle in? They were worried that the Polish MiG deal was about to get brokered in a different way than last week. So in anticipation of receiving new MiGs, they destroyed the facility that would have converted them for Ukrainian air service. You with me now? This was also near the airport where they would have been ferried to. So now they got no place to put them or convert them. This was Russia's way of saying, you can get them, but we'll kill them on the ground before they land. Or we'll kill them on the ground before you convert them. That's kind of what happened there. That's what the people of Lviv woke up to. Which, Lviv, up until this point, was kind of considered a safe haven. And because they weren't really attacked on the regular until today. So that's what's left of that facility near the airport. So let's move on. If any of you guys have anything to add on to these stories, by the way, here in the panel, interject. Like, I can stop and then you can add on to it if you have other stuff. Otherwise, I'll just go on to the next story.
Couldn't the MiGs just be converted in Poland anyways?
What's that?
Couldn't the MiGs just be converted in Poland anyways?
At this point, I think that's the only option. Now, I don't know for certain what gets changed. Language on the menu, maybe? On the screen, on the avionics, things like that? Possibly. But like you pointed out before we went on air, everyone's running the metric system, so it's obviously not that. Like all the gauges and altimeters and everything, those should all be fine.
Maybe the hard mounting points for weapons? Maybe.
Possibly.
But I would think that it would be all the same.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, the standard NATO aircraft is the F-16 for export, right? But those who still run the MiG-29s, you would probably think that those guys would have consolidated armament, between the countries that had them for the convenience of, hey, we've got a Lithuanian MiG-29 that's taken damage. Can we land in Slovenia and get repaired and re-outfitted? And Slovenia's like, we got you, bro. Land here. Don't take the risk. That makes sense to me. But we don't know. Like, they don't detail what it takes. Now, obviously, part of that is scraping the Polish logos off and painting the Ukrainian ones on. That's a thing. That is a thing. Tail numbers and all that stuff. That is a thing. Legit. But the other, communications, radio frequencies, things like that, you would think that, yeah, I think the Polish could probably take care of that before the guys have to ferry them over. That makes sense to me too. But we won't know because the deal's still not done. And they can't just push them across the border because they'll get strafed. Because they've been attacking targets all over the western part of the country now. At least for the last 3 days. Anyway, good evening to you, Pink Panther and Gunmetal Guy. Good that you made it. And I'm sure that lazy turtle will probably show up eventually. And Ellie Mae Hatfield will probably make an appearance too. Which, he didn't comment that I called him that yesterday, but he did apologize for coming in late. It's cool, dude. Like, I'm just glad you made it.
I was going to interject. Seems like
Go
a
ahead.
great time. I was going to say thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
Had enough free time to be here. I appreciate it.
Yep.
It's nice to be here.
Finally glad to have you here. I mean, we talk to F&H throughout the day at work anyway, but for you guys, you know, if you don't get to see him, here he is. So
Here I am.
and he's got job security now. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was kind of a rough day, so or 24 hours.
It's a misnomer. Yeah, for what we do in times like these, it doesn't create product. I'll put it that way. They don't create a need for product. Not good. So we'll see what happens. On the other hand, anything could fucking change day to day.
Sure. I mean, it's a corporate world, and corporate people just think in numbers, so they don't think of people. Definitely.
No, we're just robots.
I work for a Chinese guy. I know all about that.
We're robots with a face.
Yep. All right, so let's move on to, let's see, about an hour later. Like, we're already into the afternoon hours. Ooh, let's see what Pink says. We need to give the small Ukrainian Navy a couple of upgrades to go after the ship that shot the missiles. You know, this is one of those things where we had a Seawolf class submarine in the Black Sea. It sort of got detected, but it evaded. And you would think that we're still there. We're still monitoring, right? That's what the Navy does. That's what the Silent Service does. That's the job I probably should have did. Anyway, I think we've got 2 or 3 subs working the area. And it would have just been...
You're not weird enough to be in subs.
Yeah, well, I could have been. Anyway, if something were to happen to those ships in the Black Sea, right, and they just happen to blow up in the middle of the night and sink, it would take months for them to figure out what happened. Because the next ship that would come to investigate the accident would mysteriously blow up and sink. Just repeatedly, right? Until there would just be so many sunken Russian ships over the first sunken Russian ship that it would finally poke the wrecks out of the top of the ocean. Just a thought. I mean, you know, a Seawolf carries quite a few Mark 48 ADCAPs. It only takes one to sink a ship that they've got. Either way, I think Scott and I joked about it. There was a Foxtrot-class submarine that we currently have, I think, outside of, or somewhere in California. And, you know, if it had a couple of old Russian fish on board, that could have went over there. Just saying. I mean, why not? North Korea sunk a South Korean destroyer, and yet they found the remnants of Russian torpedo pieces in it. So, we're just taking a page out of their playbook. Just a thought. No, but I think you're right. Something should have been done about those ships. Apparently the Ukrainians don't have a navy, or at least not a very good one.
No, they actually, like the one major ship they had, I think they scuttled it in port.
Just in case.
So the Russians couldn't grab it.
So do they not have any Littoral-class submarines?
No, I don't think they have any subs.
Well, who's to say we can't just, you know, lease them one?
Because we don't make diesel electrics. And we are not going to lend lease a fucking nuke.
Well, let's just buy a Swedish one then. What's that new Swedish one that they've got right now? That thing is really nice.
No idea.
You ship?
I forgot the name of it. I knew it off the top of my head for months. Sweden has actually. You know what? The Japanese have one too. Like you pointed that one out to me the other day. Anyway, we're just speculating now. So what happened to all those one? What happened to all those thousands of silkworm ASMs that the French exported? That's a good question. I don't know. Let's see. One Corvette, 4 landing craft, 1 minesweeper, 13 patrol boats, 18 auxiliary vessels, and 10 aircraft. Well, thank you for detailing that. Can they get in close enough with that Corvette hit and run tactic? I don't know. Like, you would think that somebody would have suggested that by now. Oh, the Gotland class. That's what the submarine was. Swedish have a very, very fine littoral submarine called the Gotland class diesel electric. It's one of the quietest boats in the world when it goes to
The Germans
electrics.
have a pretty good one too.
Yeah, but you know, after that whole ARA San Juan thing, not very many people are asking for German subs. it's just, it's just a fact. All right, let's move on. I don't want to dwell on this too long.
No,
So
like the German new subs are nice.
yeah, actually, even the French ones are too. Like submarine
Yeah,
technology has gotten really
it,
good.
it as long as the French can actually build them and not take 10 years and billions of dollars to design a sub
They
and
got
then get
one.
rejected.
They do have
and
one.
then well, yeah, they built their own for their own class, but the Australians ain't got any yet, and it's been like 10 years. That's why they went with the U.S. nukes.
Yeah, but didn't we sort of quirk them on that deal recently? Like they were gonna buy
That's
3.
because there was a clause in the Australian contract with the French
Yeah,
that the French were continuously missing like
their
completion
deadlines.
dates.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So the Australians walked away, and they have every right to.
Wait a
It
minute
was
though.
part of their
If I
contract.
remember right, the the deal between Australia and France was they were going to buy 10 Littoral class submarines, diesel electrics. They
Mm-hmm.
couldn't get it put together in time, and then we sort of like swiggity swoogity came in and said, "We'll help you build 3 nukes, which will kill 30 Littoral class subs." And they were like, "Right, let's do it." Right? That's kind of how that went
Well, no,
down.
they for years have been very unhappy with the French and the
Right.
progress.
But I mean, we're assisting them in building a
And
sub
legally,
pen on the northern part of the continent,
we're
right?
building them a sub base,
Yeah. And we're trying to broker a deal
like a
with them for
complete
3
base.
nukes.
No, we did that.
Well, I mean, we haven't built them yet.
No, but it's a done deal. They're going to be built here, and they're going to train here on them with us.
See, I
With
like how
mixed
Pink
crew.
and Fine Ape are thinking. Like, they're like, that's a really nice fleet you got out there. Be a shame if something happened to it. Like, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you on all this. All right.
No, they're going to put their sub guys through our school.
Yes.
So we're going to train them here, and they're going to serve on U.S. subs to get experience before they get their nukes.
We did the same thing with the Swedes. And then they came and brought one of their Gotland class subs in a war game, and they took out like
And
half our
sank
fleet.
it. Yeah.
It's like, Jesus Christ. That makes us look terrible, but that made that guy look bad. He came back home and he became an admiral. The captain of that sub, over time, he got promoted up to admiral.
Mm-hmm.
That guy's a badass. All right, let's move on, because I could talk about this for hours. I think I'm actually going to start streaming some more cold waters after this or something, just for shits and giggles. All right, so about an hour after the facilities story, it's now 1:59, so we're already halfway through the day for Ukrainian stuff. That's why I was telling you that the stories just went really, really quickly today. Here's a photo, and as you can see, there's a giant hole right above the entry sign to that hospital. Yeah, so we talked about the Mariupol um, maternity hospital, where I showed you that picture of the woman that woman needs to be on Time magazine. She's passed now, and so did her baby, but I think that photo really describes the brutality of what's going on. Because they originally said that that was the 19th medical facility that got hit. And then the Ukrainians were like, no, 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 no. Oh no, that's way more than that. And their number was like more than double, right? Well, leave it up, give the World Health Organization some credit here because they were able to verify that it was even more than that. So the WHO says it is now verified 43 attacks on hospitals and health facilities in Ukraine. Now, the Mariupol thing was like not even a week ago, and that was 19. Now they're up to 43. And every time this happens, Sergei Lapdog is like, we didn't attack any of these facilities. What are you talking about? This is the Ukrainians doing it to make us look bad. Bullshit. Anyway, their total numbers is 43, leaving 12 killed and 34 injured. That number seems a little low to me. But, like we say, take the high, take the low, throw it out. The truth is somewhere in the middle. In a virtual briefing to the UN Security Council Thursday, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, I always get that middle syllable screwed up because he's got a Greek name, said that the disruption to services and supplies is posing an extreme risk to people with cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, HIV, and TB, which are among the leading causes of mortality in Ukraine. More than 35,000 mental health patients in Ukrainian psychiatric hospitals and long-term care facilities also face severe shortages of medicine, food, and blankets, adding that the life-saving medicine we need right now is peace. Wow, that doesn't sound cliche at all. Anyway, let's move on, because I spent so much time on the other story. Let's see. Why do I have this photo here? I'll post it anyway. Alright, so, this is around the same time. My RSS feed was going ding, 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 so there's a bunch of them all at once. 2 p.m. local time, Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry said Friday that its military and separatists in eastern Ukraine are, quote, tightening the noose on the city of Mariupol. That right there, that's the theater, by the way, from yesterday. What's left of it. I got a close-up shot of that one there. Which has been under frequent attack in recent days. Reuters reports citing that this came from Russian state media. So, this is like third generation bullshit, right? Propagandist bullshit. The report added that fighting is currently ongoing in the center of the besieged city. Mariupol has been under attack for 3 straight weeks. It has still not fallen. Most wartime analysts right now, retired generals and whatnot, they're all saying that this is probably going to be the first major city to fall after 3 weeks. Bear in mind that the Russians said that they should probably be able to knock out Kyiv in 3 days. And that didn't happen.
I give Ukraine 40 to 45 days because that seems like the consensus of like what it typically takes for a fucking invading military to just cripple and take over.
To hold out from today or just total for the whole conflict?
No, the whole conflict. That's typically what modern conflicts are, is about 40 or so days, it seems like, and then the shit ends and one side or the other wins. And typically it's always the invading force because guess what? You don't invade without having the ability to take over.
So the concern now is, if you look at the time that it took for the siege of Leningrad, or Stalingrad, right? You got to remember, Ukraine was the jump-off point for the defense of Stalingrad for the Russians. But they're now the attackers on the other side of the border. The only difference is they underestimated the Ukrainian military. They underestimated the amount of defensive supplies that they were going to be given in a short amount of time, and global support. But the thing is the more that Putin gets pissed and impatient, the more likely he's going to go right back to his good old-fashioned playbook of, well, let's just mention biological weapons and accuse the other side of them, because that's page 1 of the liberal playbook, and then we'll use them, and that'll flip it back in our favor. They did it in Aleppo, they did it in Chechnya, they did it in Georgia, they did it in South Ossetia. This is just what he does. This is his fallback point. And if that doesn't work, he'll fall back to using tactical nukes. 1 megaton yield. He's already talking about that. So, you're right. They might hold out for 45 days. The other consensus is Russia's running out of food and they're running out of ammo. And they figure that like 2 days ago they said, 10 more days and the Russians are going to be out of ammo. Yesterday,
They already are out of smart ammo.
more or less. Yesterday, the attacking force on the north, northeast, and northwest corners of Kyiv, they dug in. They started digging in with BMPs. They hulled down their BMPs because they know that they can't push in with them. So they're using them as pillboxes, basically, which is stupid because we just sent them 300 sling blades, UAVs that can drop a munition right over the top of it like a javelin and destroy it.
I was about to say, javelins have top attack feature.
Yeah, so does this sling blade. So they're sitting there going,
Oh, yeah.
they're like, thanks for doing that for me. Listen, Patrick, I'm glad you're here. There's no fucking way. There's just no way.
The Russians have already expended all their smart units.
No, he's talking about my
the
volume.
consensus.
Like I got my shit cranked up to 11 now, and I played it back last night, and it was loud as hell.
Yeah.
That's
No,
on
the Russians
you.
pretty much have expended all their... Consensus is they've expended most, if not all, of their smart munitions.
Yeah, and they're just getting...
Which is why they're going back to using cluster bombs and that.
Yep, they're going back to siege warfare.
Well, there's other instances that they're actually going and grabbing after they kill some Ukrainian
U.S.-made weapons.
U.S.-made weapons and like stockpile, because after they start taking certain cities, I can't remember what notable city they took, that they got reinforced with javelins, and they literally gathered like almost like 20 javelins, and now they're using them against the Ukrainians. So they are resorting to almost like cannibalism in terms of weaponry.
Mm-hmm.
So they're pretty much like, if they don't got it, they found it, they're using it.
They have to. I mean,
well, yeah.
Realistically, they have to, because look how many T-72s, T-90s, and T-92s that the Ukrainian military picked up. Better yet, think of the number of T-92 tanks that Ukrainian farmers just walked up and knocked on the hatches of and started them up and drove them off with a full ammo rack and a full tank of diesel. Like, that was the craziest video. We saw this video on, I think, day 4. 5 Ukrainian farmers, just good old boy farmers, right? They walked up to 2 T-92s, and they just sat there and they went, go up there and check it out. Go see if there's anybody inside. And they sort of like picked on one guy being like, get your ass up there and do it. So he gets up on top of this tank and he takes a giant rock and he just starts smacking it on the top of the turret. And he's like, anybody inside? And after a few minutes, like nobody answered. And they were like, open the hatch, take a look inside. He's like, why don't they shoot me? Open it, fucker! So the guy rips open the hatch and he's like, you guys gotta see this. So the camera guy jumps up there, they look down, and on a Russian tank, the ammo racks are around the turret ring. And there was all the shells lined up beautifully in the rack, like they're supposed to be. Not a single one was fired. It was a fully armed tank. And they were like, looks like they left it. Maybe they ran out of gas. So they picked on the guy again. They were like, get your ass down there and see if it'll start. So he jumps down inside it, starts it up, and he goes, you're not going to believe this. The guy brings down the camera. He puts it on the fuel gauge, full. He figured a couple of conscript groups just said, screw this, we didn't sign up for this. And they just abandoned their tanks, fully armed, fully loaded with fuel. They just left them there. The farmers are taking more equipment than the military. I'm sure they're handing it over. But it is funny.
Ukrainian farmers.
Yeah.
Ukrainian farmers only.
Yeah. They got this one guy. I think Scott sent it to me around day 4 or 5. This dude looked like a gypsy, but he made like the funniest facial expressions, and he was like, check this shit out. And he walks up to I think it was an APC of some sort, right? And he knocks on it and nothing's happening. And he's like, mine now. Hooks it up to his tractor and he starts driving off with it. And you see this Russian guy going, come back, that's mine. He's like, fuck you. Yeah, those are the stories that, it probably makes Ukrainians laugh, but then they were like, hey, wait, this is a good asset. But the Russians are doing the same thing, like you said. They're taking over. They haven't taken any major cities yet. They've taken a lot of the smaller surrounding cities, and yeah, there's, ammo drops and supply drops, and yeah, they're going to pick up a few javelins. There's no doubt about it. Now, do they have anybody who can read the instructions? Because, this could just be like the, what was that weapon called in Fifth Element?
Oh, the one with the little red button.
Yeah, like, what if they push the little red button,
The javelins even have the little red button.
I don't know, what if they just pointed it backwards? Hard to say, right? Anyway, we're just funning. It's Friday. There's not a lot of stories, We just wanted to give you guys something to giggle about a little bit. Anyway, let's move on. Let's see. Did I do that one already? Yeah, that was the Ukrainian theater. Okay, so about an hour later, I've got an updated refugee map for you. I call it the Fuji map. United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense, this is at 3:01 Ukrainian local time, said Friday that Russian forces have made, quote, minimal progress this week in Ukraine, as Ukrainian forces around Kyiv and Mykolaiv continue. Zorg ZF1, thank you, Patrick. Anyway, Ukrainian forces around Kiev and Mykolaiv continue to frustrate Russian attempts to encircle the cities. The cities Kharkiv, Chernihiv, Sumy, and Mariupol remain encircled and subject to heavy Russian shelling, the agency added. Now, the reason I gave you the Fuji map here is this has got the updated statistics. We went from 2 to 3 million in 48 hours. We went from 3 million to 3.27 million in 7 hours. 270,000 more people had escaped in 7 hours. When this all started, the estimates were that 4 million Ukrainians were going to leave the country. Mass exodus, right? I believe the last story I have for you is going to have a much, much more sobering statistic, because this has accelerated beyond any evac in World War II history. They used to make comparisons when it got up to 2 million people in that short amount of time. Now we're reaching exodus levels faster than anything that ever happened in World War II. That is how serious this conflict has become, that nobody has the balls to call it for what it is, a world war. Because it's still technically only one nation fighting another. The problem is the belligerent nation has the infantry support of 4 other countries, and nobody's talking about it. And that's shitty. Oh, look, I told you the turtle that still can't get Discord to work would show up. Anyway, the really cool thing about this refugee map that I wanted to share with you, they finally added the United States to it. Now, keep in mind, last Saturday, the first refugees leaving the European continent was 20,000, and I think they ended up in Guatemala. Notice they're still not on this map, but 7 people are now refugees in the United States. And I have a theory on this. I had a theory on this until I heard today where they actually are. I thought one of them was Greg Gutfeld's wife, and the other one was his mother-in-law. Unfortunately, Greg Gutfeld's wife is still in Poland, as is his mother-in-law. So, no, it's 7...
You got him out, he just didn't want him coming home to him.
No, it's 7 other people. They didn't want to leave. I think they're in Krakow? I think that's where he said they were. Anyway, the other startling statistic was, between yesterday and today, the number of refugees that went into Russia increased by over 20,000. And in Belarus, it went over 700. They're going into the countries that are killing them. So the only thing I can think of is those people that are going there must have been the separatists, the one in Donetsk and Luhansk. It has to be, right? Like, nothing else makes sense. It's like, hey, yo, you just lit up my house and destroyed my entire life, but I'm coming into your country for refugee status. Cool? And they're going to be like, yes, sir, right this way. Never mind that sign above you that says Arbeit macht frei. No, don't pay any attention to that. Come on in. Welcome to Russia. Here, put on this uniform here. No. Fuck that. Moving on. Okay, let's see. About another hour goes by, and this is actually quite a good one, too. Here you go. Now, this one has the European NATO members not wanting to join on it, but the reason I put this picture up there in particular, this is 4:02 Ukrainian local time. The countries of Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, okay, we're going into the Baltics, and Bulgaria have expelled a combined 20 Russian diplomats Friday because of Moscow's ongoing war with Ukraine. In Bulgaria, where 10 of the diplomats have been given 72 hours notice to leave, the Russian officials were accused of carrying out, quote, activities incompatible with their diplomatic status, citing comments that Russia's ambassador made to state media. We take this as an extremely unfriendly act and reserve the right to retaliate. This came from Russian ambassador Eleonora Mitrofanova. See, that was an easy Cyrillic to read. Latvia Foreign Minister Edgars Rinkevics tweeted that his country has expelled 3 Russian workers in connection with activities that are contrary to their diplomatic status and taking into account ongoing Russian aggression in Ukraine. Now, that's corpo speak for they're sabotaging our own country, right? That kind of sounds about right. Anyway, 20 of them got kicked out just today. Expect that number to increase. Expect the number of countries doing it to increase by quite a bit, too. I mean, if you're a Russian on diplomatic soil in someone else's country, especially in a NATO nation, don't you think you'd be keeping your head down and your mouth shut right now? Or at least calling your boss going, can I please get out of here? Everyone's looking at me really, really weird. Just a thought. All right, let's move on. Let's see. Where did I leave off? Okay, so this is another one of those around the same time situations. And I don't have a picture for this one, but pretty important story. Ukraine's deputy prime minister says that the country has set up a national information bureau in order to collect and summarize data on Ukrainian prisoners of war, dead or missing people, and people illegally detained by the Russian Federation, including civilians. Irina Vereshchuk said that the database will also track Russian prisoners of war and losses of Russian troops on its soil, so their families will get to know what happened to them, according to the Ukrainskaya Pravda. Sorry, this Cyrillic's different to me. Ukrainska Pravda newspaper. The losses of the invaders' personnel already exceed 14,000 people. That number has been updated. It is in the scroller below, by the way. This was according to official data obtained by the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Our defense forces have been capturing those who have illegally invaded our country every day since the 24th of February this year. Therefore, we will also set up lists of both the dead and prisoners. Their families will know where their husbands, children, and brothers were sent by the Russian authorities to die senselessly. Woof! That's some pretty tough speak, right? Here's the thing that kind of bugs me, though. This announcement came today. National Information Bureau, right? They're going to set this up. Did they take records and keep track of all the bodies that they've had to put in mass graves for the last week because they haven't had time to bury them individually? Because if somebody hasn't been recording that, then these numbers are going to be greatly skewed. Just a thought. But at least they're making an effort, because a lot of these folks realize, hey, look, the Russians people, the mothers and the sisters and all that, they didn't know where their kids were getting sent. Their kids were sent on what they thought was a training exercise, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, we're going into attack, and you're like, wait, what? I mean, a lot of those guys who defected or surrendered, that's what they've all been saying. They're like, wait a minute, we had no idea this was happening. We just got here and we were told training exercise for weeks. And all of a sudden they were like, okay, here we go. And like, here we go what? You know, it's, if you hear one guy say it, it could be a lie. If you hear 10 guys say it, it could still be a lie. If you hear 150 soldiers in 5 different battlefronts say it, you start to go, do these guys have any fucking clue what's going on? They're all saying the same thing, but they all had different battlefield commanders. Just a thought. Moving on. About 10 minutes later, I think this is the story of the day. I didn't write a lot about it though, but we're going to talk about this a bit. I want the whole panel involved in this one. This photo I called, honestly, do you notice any difference? On the photo on the left is what had happened today. The photo on the right was a screenshot from a documentary called Triumph of the Will. This was recorded in 1935. This was done by one of the most premier German filmmakers of the day. He was commissioned for this. He recorded the events before, leading up, and right up to Adolf Hitler's, I guess, famous speech at, I think it was Dresden, right? I want to say it was Dresden. It could be somewhere else, but sorry, it just escapes me at the moment. Anyway, this was a big deal because they put this film out as sort of a precursor of all of their intentions to try to make themselves look good before the atrocity started to set in 4 years later. Because you got to remember, the Nazi Party didn't start in 1939. It started back in like 1926 or 27. And it was like a small group, and then it just grew and it bloomed. And then it turned into the photo you see on the right. Anyway, for those of you who didn't maybe catch this today, Russian President Vladimir Putin appeared Friday at a huge flag-waving rally in Moscow and praised his country's military as the invasion of Ukraine is ongoing. Moscow police claimed more than 200,000 people were in or around the Luzhniki Stadium for the rally in concert marking the 8th anniversary of Russia's annexation of the Crimean Peninsula. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied. The event included singer Oleg Gazmanov singing Made in the USSR with the opening lines, Ukraine and Crimea, Belarus and Moldova, it's all my country. As Putin prepared to take the stage, speakers praised him as fighting Nazism in Ukraine, a claim flatly rejected by leaders all across the world. Now, I've got a couple of stories to bang into this for you. This took place in Moscow Stadium. They call it Luzhniki Stadium, but it's Moscow Stadium. It has a capacity of 84,000. They're saying 200,000. So, let's take the high number and throw it out. Let's take the realistic number of the total capacity in the stadium, 84,000, and let's say somewhere in the middle is the truth. 84,000 fit in the building. But then they had people on the ground level, as you can see at the bottom of that photo. So let's say 100,000. Here's the funny part. In the beginning of his speech, he started talking about Nazism. He started talking about taking back everything. He started talking about crushing the worms and the traitors of his country and ethnic cleansing and everything. And his microphone suddenly cut out. And then audio started playing because a hacker had broke into his microphone and cut him off and started playing this music from something else. And then I started getting text messages from a few friends of mine who happened to work for a certain group that will remain, quote, anonymous. And he was like, did you see what happened in the stadium today? And I'm like, you Magnificent bastards. Anyway, that happened, right? But it didn't detract away from the situation. He was able to organize all of this and have it up and running on the exact day of the 8th anniversary of the annexation of Crimea. Pretty weird, right? Like, it's better. A couple of underground reporters started interviewing people at the event, during and after it. And a couple of people wouldn't answer because Stasi, they're worried, is it FSB guys setting us up for the fall? But a couple of really frustrated people actually did answer these interviewers' questions. And like one guy was quoted as saying, I was told that this was a free concert and I was given the tickets and I ended up here and they locked us into it. Another guy said it was the biggest waste of 2.5 hours of his entire life. The other funny thing that most people noted was he had no supporters on the stage with him. There was no representatives from Belarus. There was no representatives from Crimea. Or not Crimea, Chechnya. There were no representatives from Syria. That place where he said he was going to get 20,000 troops to help. He was sort of by himself with a couple of just people. So that was kind of weird, right? So here's what gets even weirder. These people got tricked into going. They were locked in, so they were stuck there for the photo op. He goes on this rant, and he like quotes scripture, and he starts talking about how great their special mission is to liberate Donetsk and Luhansk and eliminate Nazism, despite the fact that Ukraine is led by a Jew. Are they still believing this bullshit? That's the question that has to be asked. The other question that has to be asked is, isn't this the first time that Putin has actually made himself publicly visible instead of hiding in the Duma or in his little mountain complex where he holds his meetings with 2 generals? Did nobody have the wherewithal to think, this is a really great opportunity for me to try out my Sako TRG-42 rifle? Or did he have like 30 checkpoints leading up to this and metal detectors everywhere? Did he ironically have a no-fly zone over the stadium? Don't you find it just a little strange? Like, this was the perfect event where everything went without a hitch, except for a guy hacking it? I guess there's always next time, right? Somebody's got to turn this guy's head into a canoe. Let's move on. I really like that story. Sorry. I really like the what ifs and possibilities of turning that big dome of his into a canoe. About an hour later, we get this story, and let me move this up just a bit so I can get this all nice and pretty for you. There you go. 5:11 Ukrainian local time. Evening. Sunset. Ukraine's food supply chain is falling apart, with trains and bridges being destroyed and supermarket shelves empty amid a swelling refugee crisis, according to a UN official and data from the agency. Now, let me cheer you up and let your heart not be troubled. Russia's major cities currently are having the exact same problem. Their bridges are intact, but their shelves are empty, and they're getting hungry, which will make them eventually get really pissed. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, but does Ukraine have that amount of time?
Well, no. The Russians can probably ride it out a little longer. Anyway. Ooh, what's this? Sorry, somebody just broke through my... I'll have to look at that later. I'm sorry. Movements of goods have slowed down due to insecurity and the reluctance of drivers. This came from Jacob Kern, UN World Food Program Emergency Coordinator for the Ukraine crisis. Told a Geneva press briefing Friday from Poland. Meanwhile, 3,270,662 refugees have fled Ukraine as of Friday. Nearly 2 million of those are in Poland, as the crisis in Ukraine becomes increasingly more dire. Yesterday I told you that the Polish are saying, look, we're doing everything we can, and we welcome all your people, but we're running out of space, and we're running out of supplies. So I think this World Food Bank guy needs to just basically start sending a bunch of C-130 straight to Poland. Just get the stuff there, give him what he needs, because this country has been more than hospitable. Give them anything they ask for at this point. Otherwise, they're going to be like, look, we can't do this anymore. We have to shut our border. Go to Moldova. They don't want to do that, though. Like, right now, these guys are smelling like roses. They want to keep it that way. Let's move on. Around the same time... Oh, okay, so this is the theater update. So here's another photo of the theater. Or what's left of it. I can't move my mouse over this where you're going to be able to see it, I don't think. Let me see. Yeah, so you're not going to be able to see me doing that. In this photo, I'm going to try to describe this as best as possible. This is a side shot of the building. If you may recall, yesterday I showed you a top-down aerial view, where at the top right corner and the bottom left corner, they had actually arranged stones on the parking lot that says children to try to prevent aerial attackers from bombing it, and yet they dropped a bomb right down the middle of the pickle barrel. So in the photo that you're looking at right now, the words children would have been in the parking lots to the left of the far left of that picture where the building is, and to the far right in those trees. Everything in the middle was the major giant square part of the theater. The thing on the left is that sort of longer stretchy bit. They literally hit it right down the middle. Like, it was a perfect shot. It did the most damage hitting that spot. So here's the thing. 5:11 p.m. Ukrainian time, a local official had said that rescue crews combing through the rubble of the theater have freed about 130 people. Unfortunately, the official said that there are more than 1,300 trapped in the basement below. Now remember, this building could house 2,000 people, which means they estimated about 700 were on the upper floor. That was not the bomb shelter when that bomb hit. They're picking through pieces of bodies right now. They managed to save 130 people up there. They can't get to the basement. The other problem is throughout the day, the rescue workers trying to get to this site were constantly under small arms fire by Russian infantry. They were getting shot at, they were getting mortared at, they were getting grenades thrown at them. They've had to abandon this rescue several times throughout the day. There are hundreds of tons of material on top of the bomb shelter that's underneath it. And you have to start to wonder, how much air do they have down there left? If there's 1,300 of them down there, how much supply do they have down there? Air plus supply, plus the fact that the Russian military won't let you save them. They want you to open it up, just like the Kursk, and find a whole pit of bodies that you could have saved had they not shot at you for a day. But remember, the Russians aren't attacking civilian targets, according to them. Just remember that. This is going to be another one of those little and ones if they ever catch Putin and actually try him as a war criminal. This is a big and one. This isn't and 1,300 if all those people die. Fine Ape says that I could ask the Swiss to borrow a few... Yes, that would make my life a much easier proposition, yes. For my head canoeing pleasure, as a matter of fact, yes. Alright, let's move on. This is a post facto story. and this came to me at 12:15 Eastern Standard Time. So I know that we're already at 5 o'clock in Ukraine. So this story is 6 o'clock Ukraine, but it was only noon for, actually, it wasn't even noon. It was only 11 o'clock for me, right? So this is just giving you an idea of timescale here. President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping spoke on a secure video call for over 2 hours Friday morning. Actually, it was like 1:58 plus change. There was probably some delays with the translation too. Discussing Russia's war against Ukraine and other issues of mutual concern. Biden took the call, which started at around 9:03 a.m. Eastern Time, so right around the time my alarm went off, in the White House Situation Room. The call concluded at 10:53 a.m. So what, hour 50? According to this, the White House previewed the call as part of the administration's ongoing efforts to maintain open lines of communication between the United States and the People's Republic of China. The White House said that Biden and Xi would discuss managing the competition between U.S. and China and Russia's war against Ukraine and other issues of mutual concern. My note at the end of this story was, nothing of value was accomplished, because I had heard stories throughout the day that nothing became of this. And don't worry, I'll detail that in more, I'll put that to you in more detail shortly, because I did get an update to this story. So we're just going to move on from this part here, but this is how it started. About an hour later, so now I'm finally at noon my time. It is now dusk, 7:13 Ukrainian local time. And I love this story. I really do. I think you're going to enjoy it too. Here's a photo for you. You may notice that t-shirt that that guy's wearing. Gun companies like Adrian Kellgren's family-owned business in Florida are helping Ukrainians fight back against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. For some of you, you already know who I'm talking about. T-shirt should have been giveaway too. Kellgren's company was left holding a $200,000 paid shipment of semi-automatic rifles after a longtime customer in Ukraine suddenly went dark following the start of the war. He's dead. Fearing the worst, Kellgren and his company Keltec decided to put those stranded 400 guns to use, sending them to Ukraine's nascent resistance movement to help civilians fight back against a Russian military that has been repeatedly shelling their apartment buildings, schools, hospitals, and hiding places. The American people want to do something, said Kellgren. He was also a former U.S. Navy pilot. We enjoy our freedoms. We cherish those things. And when we see a group of people out there getting hammered like this, it's heartbreaking. Keltec stepped up and donated guns to the Ukraine. Now, I know somebody, maybe not in this panel, maybe not in the audience, but somebody is probably giggling about that, going, they just made the war harder for the Ukrainians because Keltecs break down all the time.
I wasn't going to say it.
I know somebody was thinking it, though.
Welcome to the Resistance. Here's a Keltec.
Here's a
Oh,
Keltec.
God.
Here's a Keltec and a Phillips screwdriver so you can get it apart should you need to fix it. Oh, wait, no, that's a high point. Never mind. Now, look. I know that they're the butt of people's jokes. For civilians like us, we can buy them, and they can be quirky, and we can be frustrated, but we can get them fixed. We can get them working, right? But the fact of the matter is this is the first company I heard as a gun manufacturer step up like this, and you have to commend them. You have to. Like, it would be wrong not to.
Yeah, come on, High Point.
Come on, CZ. Anyway, my point is if they sent them a bunch of RDBs, that would be pretty incredible. If they sent them RDBA or RDBCs, the California compliant ones, I'm going to admit something to you guys. I got to shoot the RDB and the RDBC.
I have to tell you, the California compliant one was so much better. That's the one where it doesn't have a grip. You have to hold it like a traditional Milsurp bolt-action rifle. You put your thumb over the back of the stock, right? It shoots beautifully like that. And it worked. I put like, I think 10 mags through it. And I'm like, this is actually pretty good. That was the first time I ever found a California compliant gun that I liked. And I live in Texas. And I was still like, this is cool. Now in this picture, you can tell they're like sub 2000s and shit. But yeah, this is a stock photo, right? I find it really admirable that someone stepped up and did it. That's the only thing I'm just pointing out. If they don't work, well, sorry. But at least they tried. Come on, fucking CZ, Colt, get your shit together. Send some guns over there. That'd be great. Why don't you send a bunch of those new Smith & Wesson 30 super carries over there and prove how great they are? That'd be fine. Why don't you send some prototype Glock pistol caliber carbines over there? Better yet, you know what the fuck, dude? Listen, Kalashnikov USA, get your shit together. Send some guns to the Ukraine. They know how to use what you make. Problem solved. There you go. Send a bunch of like KR-103s over there and just watch them like just lay waste to Russia. That'd be great. They're like, look at that. Kalashnikov USA out Russia's Russia. That'd be a headline. I'll write the story. You make it happen. I'll write the story for you. Anyway. I mean, this is just the 2022 equivalent of airdropping Liberator pistols. I ain't touching that one. I know what you mean by that. I get it. Oh, yeah, that'd be cool, right? Let's just make a bunch of Stens. Those are easy. Bicycle factories used to make those, right?
Shit, there's still tons of parts kits out there.
Yeah, well, let's just make new ones. Let's just get rid of the NFA, abolish the ATF, and make a bunch of Stens. And then whatever we don't send to the Ukraine, we can surplus here. I'm sure most of you guys would like to have it, right? Would you take a Sten? I'd take a Sten.
I'd rather have a Sterling.
Well, fuck it. Let's just look. Here's a Sten. We're gonna make new M3 grease guns too. There you go.
I think the government should hand those out instead of those fucking stimulus checks that keep degrading our dollar.
There's a stimulus. Look, we're not going to give you money because you're just going to piss it away on fucking Starbucks and Red Lobster. Here's a Sten. Brand new manufacture.
You get a Sten, you get a Sten, and you get a Sten.
Oh, yeah. And to keep it really cool, it feeds with Glock mags. Problem solved. Problem solved. 33 round Glock mags. Here you go. Boom.
Dick mag out the side.
Oh, some jackass is going to use one of those RWS 50 round Korean drums and be like, this is even cooler. Like, now it's really heavy.
This is my modern snail drum.
This is my problem solver.
Yeah. One-handed.
Oh.
Yeah, that sounds as heavy as fucking 10 boxes that you might move.
Yeah. Brace this would actually make sense with that now.
Right.
All right.
Smaller stature man, I need a brace.
All right, moving on. Around the same time, this is a couple minutes later. Let's see. I have a picture for you, and this will warm the cockles of your heart because it follows in line with General Keith Kellogg's, idea of nothing boosts a military's morale better and faster than killing the other military's generals. Well, this guy's not quite a general, but he's still pretty valuable. Here he is. Confirmed. Number 5. The other guy from yesterday was arrested, but we don't know if he's been disappeared. If he has, then this is number 6. Anyway, Ukraine's Ministry of Defense said Friday that its troops have, quote, eliminated the commander of the 331st Airborne Regiment of the Russian Army, Colonel Sergei Sukharev. Ooh, I said that right this time. Hey, how about that? I had to read it back twice just to make sure. He took part in the Battle of Ilovaisk in 2014, where he committed a war crime. They didn't specify what it was. Maybe he just diddled a polar bear or something. Sukharev's death reportedly has been confirmed by Russian state media. So, Welcome to the worms. Can I just bank?
in.
Oh. Fine Ape
Worms
is
go out.
asking if he could just bank a few stimulus stens and get an MP5 SK instead. Can you bank? Can you bank 2 MP5 SKs for an MP7? See, you gotta think ahead, man.
You can have it, but
what
you
it-
can't have any ammo.
Damn.
Tell me
Actually,
what
no.
the
I think
equivalency is for him.
I think CMMG makes a Banshee in that MP7 caliber.
I
Yeah, but
know
isn't
they
that
make
like
it
a-
in 5.7.
No, it's like a
I thought it was like a
4.6 something.
4.6.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, 4.6 retard overpriced round.
yeah. I think they make that.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I know they make the Banshee in 5.7.
how much worse can it be? Oh my
Certainly.
god. Okay, fantasy time. CMMG announces the new Banshee in 7.5 Brno.
I've got a better
Also,
idea.
7.5 retard time.
Yeah, yeah.
New Banshee in
Like-
30 super carry.
Dude, at
fuck
fucking
that.
30 to 40 cents a round for 9mm, nobody's fucking buying that except for like doctors and people that hit the like lottery and shit.
I was looking up the possibility of being able to hand load 7.5 Brno. It's just not going to happen. They don't have a die set yet. Like
What primer does that even take?
And they want it that way.
That takes small pistol magnum.
So, unobtainium?
No, small pistol magnum. I load 9mm with that, but it's the
Last
brass.
Magnum I saw was
It's-
large pistol Magnum.
It's the brass
That was
that's
less.
kind of hard. But I contacted CH4D, and they were like, well, send us like 10 rounds that are unfired and like 20 rounds that are fired, and we can make you a die set. And I thought, okay. I mean, that's what they do. MP5 SD in 10mm. Get that shit out of here. Kalashnikov USA, you better hurry the hell up with my KP10. Because I will buy one. It'll look good on the wall next to my KP9.
So, this seems like an appropriate time. I want to give a huge shout out to Primary Arms. I back ordered, it was about 4 months ago, a Lantac Dragon that was it was threaded in 14x1 left hand, but it's the ASR silencer co-mount version of the Lantac Dragon. So it's like this ultra uber rare 14x1 like AK threaded Lantac Dragon. Like you typically only get those in 1/2x28 or like 5/8 by 24. You know, like the common thread pitches. Typically nobody fucking does shit for the AK, as everybody knows. But so they're typically like $168. But I fucking bought one like ages ago, and was like, dude, I shot it next to a Hungarian AMD break, and I could tell a noticeable difference side by side with these two rifles. You know, shooting the same load and everything. Where I'm going, dude. Sadly, I noticed a huge difference here. So I look on the website, and they have them available for back order for like $110. And sure enough, 4 months later, I finally get it. An in-stock notification, call them up, and sure enough, they like allot one to my back order, and I finally got it today. So I need to do so. I need to get that on there, get it shimmed up, and freaking rock set it in place, because it unfortunately doesn't come with the detent, the hole drilled. And the Lantac Dragon is like the hardest Rockwell hardness known to man. It seems like
You're gonna have to drill the dimple with another dragon.
right. No, I'm just gonna fucking do like they suggest, stem it on there, and then use some of that rock set.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I got plenty of rock set. I don't know if they still do it, but whenever you buy like a Silencer Co. ASR mount, like the 3-prong flash suppressor, or excuse me, the 3-prong, can't speak tonight, 3-prong flash suppressor, it comes with like a little tiny vial of rock set, or used to at least. They probably don't do that now because, you know, gas went up, so they had to rape you somehow. Actually,
Oh, I was gonna say we plug Primary Arms. I live literally 20 minutes away from them, and they're gonna sponsor Military Arms Channel instead, who lives 6 states north of them. What the hell, man?
do they have a physical store that you can go
Yeah.
as a consumer?
Yeah, it's like right down the street from my shop.
Oh my god! So all the shit that's on the website, you can just walk in and like walk through the showroom and see it.
Yep.
Oh my god, that would be incredible, dude.
It's not what you think. It takes time. But yeah, I could. It's just it's not what you think. It's a lot
It's not.
simpler.
You're saying it's not as good as like sitting on the toilet in the comfort of your home, buck ass, with your phone, and you have a keyword search where you're like, there it is, instant
No,
gratification.
it's not that. It's just it's not it's it's a storefront. I mean, it's like walking into your local in a way.
Jeez.
Except the showroom's small, the warehouse is huge. The checkout
My
is
local,
behind burglar bars for whatever reason. I don't know.
dude, my local is a bunch of cucks.
I mean, it's
I just,
okay, I
I don't know.
guess. They did me a solid a few years back. I told you that story about my AR-10 build, and like I told you they would do you right. So I'm glad it worked out that way.
Oh yeah, yeah. Once again, Primary Arms strikes again, and like for freedom,
Yep.
they are the best. Every time PSA strikes, it's like, dude, bend right over. We
Yeah.
got you by the balls. It's $150. That's all, but it doesn't actually work.
It's like,
Oh, you want to warranty that? Oh, that's fucking like multiple emails and an hour and a half phone call,
I
and
had it
then it
worse.
still took you like weeks to get a shipping label. And guess what? Now I'm like 2 or 3 weeks out, and
Oh
I
yeah,
still don't
because
know
you
what's
sent
going
that
on with
lower
that
off,
gun.
didn't you?
Yeah, that's the PSA has just turned to shit. All they do is mark up their prices and be like, "Look at this! It's MSRP of like $700, guys, for like a Geisley trigger, but we've got it on sale right now for like what's the full MSRP again on Geisley's site?
Add
Oh yeah,
10%.
$325. Yeah, it's $325 on sale, guys, and it's in stock."
Plus
Like that's
tax.
what they fucking turned into, and they're like a huge shill for Springfield, a huge shill for Keltec, like anybody that will peddle their crap through them. And it's just so sad. It used to be a great. Well, I mean, so everybody used to be a great place to shop, and now it's
Corpo.
everyone's became like 30 to 50 cents or more around.
It's Corpo. It's all Corpo.
Oh yeah. Well, and now like places like Not Just Shooter Supply are charging taxes
They have
on
to.
online sales. No, I looked into state law. They're not required to until 2023 for Missouri. But yet, they're in Texas and they're charging taxes.
So,
And I got a
okay.
response from them saying that, and they cited it was like Wayfair versus South Dakota, or rather the other way, South Dakota versus Wayfair in 2018, and they said that the Supreme Court ruled 5-4, saying that, and then they said that they were mandated to charge taxes.
Yeah.
I'm going, wait a minute, mandate? Mandate is not law.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier too. It's like ATF
you
isn't
pointed
law
out the
either.
ATF. Yep, those fucking cucks make law.
Yep.
Just by by misreading
Interpreting
a regulation.
Interpreting.
Yeah, that Congress already fucking, we literally paid Congress, or our grandparents did at some point with their taxes.
Mm.
We got these cucks just fucking making law and coming in shooting dogs over that shit.
That's what I was going to say. Like, they're going to call and be like, if you like your dog, you're going to let this go. I'm like, I got 9 dogs. I got dogs to spare. We have fully automatic weapons. Damn it. Why don't I?
It's like my wife says. She's like, why the fuck are you worrying about paying the taxes on that shit? Fuck it. Like, you work for a living. Like, it's the principle of the thing that I got fucking overcharged for the taxes.
Online sales used to be the great bastion of skipping taxes. That's why it took off since 1998. But it is what it is.
It was the holy grail until old people in Congress and government found out about it.
Yeah, they just like, look how many billions we're leaving on the table.
Old people that don't even know how to work their phone.
Well, it's just they
run shit in America.
They want to grab billions so they could piss it away on stupid programs for the Green New Deal. Oh, hang on, I'm going to drag in Jaime here because I don't know why he got dumped out. There you go.
Yeah, I sent my buddy a link earlier.
All right, so let me get to the rest of the stories because we're going to run really long.
Oh, there
otherwise.
you go. There you
go. Let's see. So about an hour later, and you can take this for what it's worth because I know everyone has different opinions on certain groups like CENTCOM. United States Central Command, CENTCOM. What a coincidence. Commander General Frank McKenzie said there was little evidence that foreign fighters were traveling from Syria to Ukraine as Russia looks to ramp up recruitment for its war. We see little evidence of recruiting in Syria to bring people back to Ukraine. Not saying that it couldn't happen, I'm just not saying that 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 haven't gone. This is his actual quote, by the way. But we haven't seen the large-scale effort to do that. The general's comments were in response to questions on Russian President Vladimir Putin's reported efforts to have Syrians join the fight in Ukraine. Earlier this month, Syrian news website Deir Ezor 24 claimed that Moscow was offering 6-month contracts with pay. This is shitty. You thought your job was bad. They were offering 6-month contracts with pay ranging from $200 to $300 a month in a push to increase its force posture in Ukraine. $300 a month to go fight in another country for some other asshole's war. Now, the reason Syria has come up is because Bashar al-Assad couldn't win his war. Russians stepped in, said, "What's in Aleppo? It doesn't matter. Let's just kill it with chemical weapons." And so they did. Meanwhile, the Syrian military, or paramilitary, or militia, or whatever you want to call them, that are loyal to Assad, they gained a lot of valuable urban combat experience. So Putin's got a huge conscript army, draftees, young kids, people that were lied to, or hey, it's 3 hots and a cot, and I come from a village poorer than the one Putin grew up in. And they have no experience. They have no urban combat experience at all. So Putin's idea was, I'm going to bring in the ace of spades, that guy that I showed you from the Chechen army, and I'm going to bring in the Syrian paramilitary that know how to fight urban combat and apparently know how to put on a mask to protect themselves from biological weapons. And I'm going to pay them about $350? No, about $300 because the ruble's in the toilet now. Shit, maybe it's only $200. And they're not lining up like they said they would. He was originally trying to get 20,000 Syrians into Ukraine. He's getting a trickle of them. 2 here, 3 here, 4 here. It's not enough to make a battalion. So what's he doing? Is he going to use them as advisors? Hey, yeah, I know you're only 17 and you joined as a conscript, or you were forced into this as a conscript for the Russian military. I want you to take orders from this 22-year-old from Syria who barely speaks your language. He smells curiously like rotten onions and camel farts. Because he's fought in cities a couple of weeks longer than you have. What's that going to do for morale? Whatever. Let's move on. Was that a bit too racist? Fuck it. About an hour later, it is now 2:18 Central. It's 3:18 in Washington, D.C. And I got a photo for you. Let me see if I can pull this up right quick. Here you go. Doesn't that look like a guy who's posturing for a photo op? I mean, the dude that's looking at him is to his right. And he's looking away. Like, I'm not... If I can't see you, you're not there. Anyway. This is a post-facto story, by the way. In starkly contrasting readouts by the United States and China of the call Friday morning between President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping, the U.S. emphasized imposing costs on Russia, while the Chinese called for an even-handed approach that recognized, quote, the security concerns of both Russia and Ukraine. Sidebar. The Chinese were able to put out the notes of the phone call, 3.5 pages worth, translated, before the call had even ended. The Biden administration didn't put out the notes until 4.5 hours later, and Jen Psaki was able to paraphrase it in less than 20 seconds. That's the contrast. Okay, let's move on to the rest of the story.
The readouts were not different substantively, but notable for the totalitarian regime's lengthy, robust provision of detailed information about the relationship between China and the U.S., and an American report that included mostly well-known diplo-speak. See, I say corpo-speak, they say diplo-speak. It's the same thing. While China said generally it stands for peace and opposes war and hopes for a cessation of hostilities, it made no demand that Russia cease operations in Ukraine that have included horrific destruction and killing of civilians. All sides need to jointly support Russia and Ukraine in having dialogue and negotiation that will produce results and lead to peace. This is what the Chinese government said. The U.S. and NATO should have a dialogue with Russia to address the crux of the Ukraine crisis and ease the security concerns of both Russia and Ukraine. This is corpo speak. China also suggested that it opposed to sanctions on Russia. Sweeping and indiscriminate sanctions would only make the people suffer, the Chinese statement said. If further escalated, they could trigger serious crises in the global economy and trade, finance, energy, food, and industrial and supply chains, crippling the already languishing world economy and causing irrevocable losses. Biden issued a warning to China, the U.S. said, which described the implications and consequences if China provides material support to Russia as it conducts brutal attacks against Ukrainian cities and civilians. The president underscored his support for a diplomatic resolution to the crisis. The conversation focused on Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, the White House said. President Biden outlined the views of the United States and our allies and partners on this crisis. He also detailed our efforts to prevent and then respond to the invasion, including any imposing costs on Russia. China added that Biden reiterated that the U.S. does not seek a new Cold War with China. It does not aim to change China's system. The revitalization of its alliances is not targeted at China. The U.S. does not support Taiwan independence, and it has no intention to seek a conflict with China. The last 5 sentences I've described to you are absolute categorical bullshit. But, unfortunately, the Biden administration also already admitted that they didn't talk about anything in that call. He basically just talked about Russia, Ukraine, and then he said, now don't you go messing with Taiwan now, alright? Talk to you later, bro. Bye. And that was it. Nothing materialized of this. China was able to weave this whole story about everything that Biden didn't say. Like, Biden said he didn't want to seek a new Cold War. No, he doesn't want to attack China. No, he didn't want to revitalize alliances that are targeted at us. No, he doesn't support Taiwan. Bullshit. We just crashed a Seawolf-class submarine into a seamount just south of your fucking coast to keep an eye on you. We don't support Taiwan independence. Right. I mean, we wrecked a multi-billion-dollar submarine. Go ahead.
Remember how everybody always talked about Trump and the 4D chess?
Yes.
What if Biden was actually heavily invested in like Russian, oil and like all the shit that's like skyrocketing, where we're seeing like the direct inflation today or whatever, what have you? And he's the one actually playing 4D chess, where he appears to be a bumbling idiot that won't stop shitting his pants and eating ice cream. And in reality, he's controlling the ship directly to where his investments are leading him.
You mean exactly like he did with his son?
Dude, this is like, man.
You see, the thing is you're giving Biden way too much credit.
No, but I'm like, think about it. That would be the ultimate, like, sleight of hand, like a magician.
Yeah, but we already know what's going on. You see, the whole Hunter Biden laptop thing, that blew up today. I don't know if you...
Did it?
Yeah.
I missed
Okay.
that.
So, last year, the New York Post released a story about Hunter Biden's laptop. The entire DNC and 95% of the media owned by the DNC downplayed it, saying, "You guys are crazy. This is conspiracy theory. Shut up. You know, this is a hoax. This is Russian collusion. This is all Trump's fault." And what happened? Trump lost, right? Fast forward to today, the New York Times, one of the biggest critics of the New York Post story, had to admit, we were wrong. The Biden laptop is real, and it's real as fuck. They admitted that today. Which, if you're Durham and you're doing this investigation on Hillary and Russia collusion, you should be able to tie all of it together. And I'm sure he's trying. It's just how much longer is it going to take? Probably the last 2 years of the Biden administration? Maybe? I don't know. The whole point is it's all corpo speak. It's all bullshit. Everything that Hunter Biden has done in terms of donations to the big guy with China is obvious already. Like, we already knew all this, like 2 years ago. The masses that turned it down are now admitting to it. But you see, liberals and their ilk and their followers and voter base, they've got about the attention span of a goldfish. So this is all new to them again. They're like, "Oh my God, what are you talking? This is horrible." And everyone's just kind of looking at them like, "Really? Fucking really? Where were you 2 years ago?" They can't even remember where they were 2 minutes ago. Anyway, let's move on. This is getting fun. Okay, let's see. I gotta get the timestamp for this. So this next story came about 2 hours later. Yes, they did, Mr. Knives. New York Post got shat on for it from everybody. But now all of a sudden, like, everyone's saying, "Okay, maybe you were right." So about 2 hours later, it is now 5:19 p.m. in D.C. So business is concluded for the day. Unless you're a Democrat, then you're about to slip something in the 23rd hour, right? So they're still hanging around. The State Department on Friday refused to detail what red lines the U.S. would draw with respect to China's support for Russia amid its deadly invasion in Ukraine. President Biden warned Chinese President Xi Jinping in a call Friday morning, saying that there would be consequences if Beijing provides Moscow with material support, while Russia continues its deadly campaign against its southern neighbor. But when pressed by reporters as to what red lines the White House would draw, the State Department was light on answers. As a matter of fact, they completely deflected from the question and moved on to the next reporter. Do you know why? You know why they do that?
Best move? I mean,
Well,
briefly.
think Obama, think Syria, think the use of chemical weapons, and think of the red line he
About
drew
red line?
that he didn't enforce.
Right, imaginary red line.
That's why they don't do anything with the DNC. They don't talk about red lines because they have no clue how to enforce them.
Isn't there like a famous saying that's like, talk shit like a bitch, get smacked like a bitch?
Yes. Yes. Okay, slight sidebar. Ellie Mae Hatfield has arrived. I did get your message on, I think it was Instagram Messenger, and I do appreciate what you said, so thank you. And it's cool that you're late. I know you have a real life outside of this, so I'm just glad you're here. All right, let's move on. All right, so 1 minute later, but we're going to shoot across the ocean. We're going back to Ukraine. So it is 11:20. The day is almost over. Day 23 in Ukraine is almost over. More than 12 million people were stranded in areas affected by Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Now remember, this is a country of 40 million. While over 6.4 million Ukrainians are currently displaced, but remain in the country as of Wednesday. This came from the United Nations-run Global Protection Cluster. I guess that's the name of it. They're called the Global Protection Cluster. Sorry. The staggering statistics were compiled by a survey by the International Organization for Migration, or IOM, and shared in Friday's update on IDP figures in Ukraine. An IDP is an internationally displaced person, or someone who has been displaced from their home but remains in the country. So somebody on the run. The IOM found that an estimated 6.4 million internally displaced peoples were reported in Ukraine as of Wednesday. That's 1/7 their entire population. That's a lot of people on the move. According to the Protection Cluster, a coalition of non-governmental United Nations and humanitarian organizations are trying desperately to help them escape. So, we were told that there were an estimated 4 million people that were going to leave Ukraine as refugees. But now we're being told that 12 million people are stranded, 6.5 million of them are still displaced within the country, trying desperately to get out. The humanitarian corridors in Mariupol continue to be violated by the Russians. They're like, "Oh, okay, bro, go down this road here, and you'll be clear to go." And as soon as that road gets full of cars, Igor's like, "Okay, hit them with your artillery." What? Shoot. And they do. And those poor people trying to get out get attacked. The people of Mariupol right now are so desperate to get out, they're not waiting for the ceasefire agreements that never get agreed upon and abided by anyway. So now they're just running anytime they can. If they see an opening, they take it. If they get killed, the next guy sits there and watches and goes, "Okay, now," and they run, and then they get shot down. It's almost like the Great Escape, isn't it? That's why there's so many of these, quote, displaced people, because they're trying to leave and they can't. They're stuck in limbo, or their building was destroyed that they lived in, or their business is destroyed and they got nowhere to go, or their grocery store was destroyed and they got nothing to eat. Oh, sidebar. Yesterday I told you a story about Sergei Lavrov. Lapdog. Same bitch. Anyway, he was traveling from Moscow to Beijing on a flight. Diplomatic thing, right? Probably to go, "Do you still have my back, broski?" And Xi Jinping would have been like, "Yes." And he'd be like, "Good, I'm going back to Moscow now." Well, halfway through the flight, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the Chinese right now, they're sort of like teetering when it comes to who they want to be aligned with. See, when this all kicked off, the Chinese were like, they were going to use the Russians by proxy, right? They were going to say, "Okay, you guys go push west and cause as much havoc as you can. And while everyone's focusing on you, we're going to go take over Taiwan and start swarming the east." But because we're bros, we'll never collide into one another because our interests are sending us in opposite directions, right? So, at first, that was the plan. They collaborated this during the Olympics. And then right before the Olympics ended, Xi Jinping was like, "Listen, don't start this until after this is over because the Olympics are the crown jewel of the media, right? Let's get through this first, and then when everyone starts getting home, while they're flying away from our event, you can go attack while the world is distracted by the closing ceremonies and all this other BS." So Putin waited. He waited a week. And in that week, while he was surrounding the country, he was burning gas. And his troops were eating their MREs. And then there was a story that 10 days worth of food was reduced down to 3 by the time they were given the order to cross into Ukraine.
So then you got all those stories about them starving or whatnot. Got delayed. China saw this attack. China was given this assurance, I guess, that, oh, don't worry, the Ukrainians, they have no fight in them. They don't know shit. Look how we took over Crimea and no problem at all. We had, Barack Obama. He just turned over. No big deal. This will be great. 3 days vacation. It'll be like 3-day weekend. Hey, look, we got new country, right? Sorry, I'm not very good at impressions. Anyway, that's kind of what the Chinese were told. Here we are at day 23. 20 days past that deadline. They have seen the world sanction Russia into the Stone Age. Some of us are not getting our Ivan the Bear tactical orders because of it. Some of us are not getting our Sell Soviet stuff orders because of it. Some of us are pretty pissed that the cost per round of 7.6239 jumped 15% overnight because of this. So we're not happy. China's not happy either, because they thought, hey, got big Russian bro over here, and they're getting their shit pushed in, and they look like Dad's army, over here, led by Gomer Pyle USMC. They look like a joke, right? And now they're losing the PR battle because of war atrocities, hitting hospitals, hitting civilian centers, killing women and children and babies. Now they're being, suspected of, well, they've proven the use of thermobarics, vacuum bombs. Now they're worried about the use of biological and chemical weapons because little Vladdy is getting a little bit pissed off. He wants results, and he wants them now. Apparently they don't have J.G. Wentworth for war. So he's going to refer to his old playbook of, release the chemical weapons. Fuck it. And that's coming. Without a doubt, that's coming. And if that doesn't work, and Kyiv still stands tall, and his commander starts saying, we're out of bullets, comrade. What do you want us to do? He'll say, hold still, right as he pushes the button and drops a tactical nuke on top of his own military in theater. Because that gets rid of two things. Soldiers he thought were useless, and the city he wanted to destroy anyway. It's coming. It's coming. China, on the other hand, is going, I don't want this smoke. This is getting out of hand. This is ridiculous. If we hitch our wagon to this, we're going to be sanctioned into the Stone Age. The world will forget us. We will no longer be the manufacturer of cheap labor in the world. Everybody will turn to India and make that an overnight superpower. That would be the biggest insult to China in their history since losing to the Mongolians. Student of history. Anyway, so now they're changing their tune. They're like, oh no, what's happening in the Ukraine is abhorrent. We can't support this. No way. This is terrible. We can't have this, right? So what are they doing? They're sort of backing off. Now, before the meeting with Biden today, they did sail an aircraft carrier across the straits, right across Taiwan. Like, hey, we're still here. We can own you if we wanted to. But they didn't do anything. They just kind of showed off, right? But their tune is changing. Putin is about to be a man by himself, standing alone. And it's not going to end well for him. Unfortunately, the problem is if he gets defeated in Ukraine and he leaves the country with his tail between his legs, the war's still only half over. And I'm not talking about China. Just the part with Russia is still only half over. Because he cannot be allowed to live. He cannot be allowed to stay on this side of the grass. You have to go get him. But he's never left Moscow. So how do you get him after you've defeated him and stopped his invasion? That's going to be the next major challenge and hurdle. Because that's a question that somebody's going to have to ask and somebody else is going to have to answer. And China, in the meantime, they're just going to be like, boy, we dodged a bullet with that one. Anyway, I was going to lead into something else, but I forgot where I was going with that. But that's the majority of it. Just trying to make you think. Not in an E-Honda wear your tinfoil hat kind of way. Just, these are the things that are going on. You know, you can sort of connect the dots. All right, let's move on. It is now another hour, and it is now midnight, 12:21 a.m. Saturday in Ukraine. But this was a post facto story because I guess it takes time for them to sort of get all this out and put it together for us. I'm going to show you a picture of this, which is a javelin. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? It's even got it pointed in the right direction. Didn't hit the little red button at the bottom. Kind of want that AK there, though. Russian forces remain largely stalled across Ukraine after more than 3 weeks of fighting. This came from a U.S. senior defense official Friday. Russian troops have launched more than 1,080 cruise missiles. Remember, they cost $1 million apiece. At Ukrainian targets since the start of this invasion. Despite weeks of continued attempts to encircle the capital city of Kyiv from 3 different directions, Russian troops still have not made any significant advances from the north or northwest. Despite weeks of continued attempts to encircle the capital city of Kyiv, oh wait, did I read that already? Yeah, I did. Sorry, I wrote that twice. And to the east of Kyiv, we have observed no movement from Russian forces. They remain approximately 30 kilometers to the east, noting that Ukrainians continue to put up a passionate resistance. Cities that border Belarus and Russia, like Chernihiv and Kharkiv, have continued to fend off Russian forces on the ground from overtaking them. Mariupol, located in the south of the country in the Donetsk region, has been hit hard by Russian shelling, but Ukrainians are continuing to defend the city. Reports of missile strikes near the Lviv International Airport also appear to be accurate, though the type of ammunition used and the extent of the destruction remains unclear. We assess the airspace over Ukraine remains contested. The Ukrainian Air Force is continuing to fly aircraft and employ air and missile defense. It is estimated that Russia maintains 90% of its available combat power. Now remember, he's got 100% of his combat troops in theater now. And even though there's all these losses scrolling across the bottom of your screen, they still estimate that Russia's got 90% of its combat power left. Whatever happened to that theory that they're running out of ammo? Anyway, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky continues to press the U.S. and NATO to install a no-fly zone or send in additional air support. The 30-member alliance again refused to enact a no-fly zone this week, citing concerns that it could escalate the war beyond Ukraine's borders. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said this policy is necessary because enforcing a no-fly zone would require combat with Russia directly. The president was clear that we would not have U.S. forces fighting in Ukraine. Doesn't that kind of come off like red lines that just don't get, upheld? It has that same flavor, right? The U.S. pledged to provide another $1 billion in defensive aid this week and said it was working with Ukraine to address its aerial defenses. Officials have said that the vast amount of Russian missile fire has come from ground-based systems that would make enforcing a no-fly zone ineffective. Instead, Austin said that the use of drones have proven incredibly effective, and Ukraine's use of surface-to-air missiles has helped Ukrainian troops exchange fire with those Russian forces. The U.S. will send 3,000 shoulder-launched surface-to-air missiles, including 800 Stinger anti-aircraft systems and 2,000 Javelins. Another 1,000 light anti-armor weapons, 6,000
6,000 VT-4 anti-armor systems, and 100 tactical unmanned aerial systems will also be provided. Those are called sling blades, by the way. A load of 100 grenade launchers, 500 rifles, 1,000 pistols, 400 machine guns, 400 shotguns, and 200 million rounds of ammunition will be included to help the fight in the ongoing war in Ukraine. Tell me again why we have an ammo shortage. Better yet, tell me why that they can just send these willy-nilly with no hesitation whatsoever, and yet we have to deal with the ATF and an NFA. Why does that work? How does that work again? Remember, they're going to tell you that they're sending all this shit to the Ukrainian military. The Ukrainian military has been clearly handing out the weapons to the civilian population to defend the country. Okay. Why do we need an NFA? I don't know. Fuck it. Whatever. Let's move on. 200 million rounds of ammo. I'm going to go look for primers tomorrow. There should be tons of them if they can give away 200 million rounds of ammo, right? Should be. Anyway, 6:25. I'm already home from work. It is 1:25 a.m. Saturday, day 24 in Ukraine. And the Institute for the Study of War, the Institute. Remember I've been making all those Fallout 4 references for the past week? Now it's the Institute. Anyway, this is General Jack Keene's group, by the way. They released a report Friday that stated that Ukrainian forces have engaged in a successful counterattack around the city of Mykolaiv over the past several days. The report also noted that Russian troops continued to secure territory around the city of Mariupol on March 18th, but also noted that morale among Russian troops appears to be deteriorating. Russian forces face growing morale and supply problems, including growing reports of self-mutilation among Russian troops to avoid deployment to Ukraine and shortages of key gilded munitions, the report said. The report adds that Russia did not conduct any offensive operations to the northwest or northeast of Kiev today, on the 18th. Self-mutilation. I can't remember what movie or TV show it was, but I remember there was a bunch of guys talking about taking their service pistol and shooting off their little toes so they wouldn't get deployed. And I can't help but think that this parallel is the same. Russian forces trying to self-mutilate. I don't know. Putin doesn't like gays, right? Maybe they should all just have one giant Roman orgy so they're all dismissed. Anyway. Try not to think about that. That's gross. Let's see. Another hour goes by. It is now 2:36 a.m. in Moscow. Now, this is the big story because this is the last story of the day from me. And the picture I used is called Guess Who's Back? And take a good look because that woman, I don't know. Look at that awesome mustache and that perfect hair, right? Anyway. 2:36 a.m. Moscow. Vladimir Putin is adjusting his rhetoric following his stalled invasion of Ukraine, touching on Stalinist nostalgia and patriotic themes to boost public support for the war, which he continues to call a special military operation, and claims was launched as a defensive measure. Tell me again how it's defensive if you go into somebody else's country. Anyway. In a speech Thursday, he prepped his remarks with Stalin-esque dog whistling and warnings of a fifth column of Russian scum and traitors working to undermine his ambitions from within. Remember what I told you? This whole thing with Ukraine? It's the dying wish of a Cold War dinosaur. Now he's blaming scum and traitors within his own ranks to undermine his ambitions from within. Like, okay.
The West collectively is trying to fracture our society, to provoke a civil conflict in Russia by means of the fifth column. Is he trying to break the fourth wall? Like, maybe this guy's seen Deadpool or something. Anyway, the goal is Russia's collapse. No, the goal is your collapse. Like, the goal is your death. He called for a self-purification to rid Russia of internal war critics and accused the West of canceling Russia on the world stage, while claiming Europe has united itself with Hitler's aggression against Russia. Has he not got the memo that Hitler died, and the guy he's drawing his inspiration from is the reason that Hitler's dead? Guess not. A banner on the stage read, "For a world without Nazism," in Russian. Before invading Ukraine, he accused Kyiv of being run by neo-Nazis and drug addicts. The Russian people will always be able to differentiate true patriots from scum and traitors, and will simply spit them out like an insect that accidentally flew in and got trapped in your mouth. I'm confident that a necessary self-cleansing of society will only strengthen our country and solidarity and readiness to respond to any and all challenges. At the same time, his government is cracking down on dissident and independent journalism. Scott fell asleep. I gotta mute him.
No, he didn't. He's not asleep.
Really?
No.
Nah. Fucker. I changed your name to
Just a quick nap.
I'm about to
fucker. He's just
rename
resting
him
his
Chat
eyes.
Napper in Cyrillic, aren't I?
Right?
Anyway.
No, because if I was chat napping, I would be not responding as quickly.
That's because we woke you up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a snapback. It's okay, bro. We
It's
all
okay.
get tired.
We'll just replay it
We
at that
deserve
timestamp, 2:06 and 30 seconds.
You need to make a musical, like, rendition.
I probably
of that.
could, like, auto-tune him.
Like, yeah, with the snore. I'm not awake. It's like the snore.
No,
I'm
it's
awake.
because I'm laying on my couch, which lays when I recline it almost vertically,
This
and I
is
have
like
my neck
Russian-level excuses.
literally buried into my chest, so I can see my
Okay.
TV.
All
I
right.
think it was actually his
So
leather
it
chair
creates-
making that noise.
Okay,
It
Vladi.
creates breathing problems.
Okay, Vladi. Okay. Don't calm down.
Just don't
Calm
wanna
your
hear that
Soviet
rap song.
tits.
That rap song goes live. Let me know.
Yep. We'll work on
I'll
that
drop first comment.
All right. Where did I leave
I'm
off?
asleep, bro.
Let's
Just
see.
snap, bro.
Okay, so
Sorry, man.
at the same time as government's cracking down on dissident and independent journalism, locking up 7 reporters in connection with government events in Moscow and St. Petersburg Friday, according to the OVD Info Group, which monitors politically motivated arrests. Prosecutors also charged an expat food blogger. A food blogger. Remember me making fun of all the use of barley and oat fucking garbage that they eat in their MREs? Yeah. Food blogger prosecutors charged an expat food blogger with violating a new law banning criticism of the Russian military, and probably their MREs, which carries a punishment of up to 15 years in prison. The food sucks. You're going to jail. And a TV producer from the Kremlin's leading state-owned network was fined last week after photobombing her own set. What was that girl's name? Hit me up. Hey. Hang on, I lost my space. Oh, during a live broadcast with an anti-war message. Yeah. She wasn't bad looking. Anyway, Putin is calling on the Russian people to root out and expose the traitors and bring them to the attention of government authorities. Welcome back to the Stasi. 1 out of every 4 people in East Germany was Stasi. Fun fact. Former Defense Intelligence Agency and author of Putin's playbook, Rebecca Koffler, was quoted saying all this crap, by the way. He is basically encouraging people to turn in their friends and neighbors whom they perceive as the 5th column. It's an equivalent of the Red Terror period. I was going to say Red Terrier. Red Terror period during Stalin, who who galvanized the Russians to look for the enemies of the people and turn them into the secret police. The Stasi! Stalin authorized murders of millions of people who were perceived as disloyal to the Soviet government and the Communist Party. Scott, what was the name of that movie where Jeffrey Tambor played a Russian guy or whatever? And they were making fun of Stalin and his executions. You remember that?
No.
Damn it. Somebody's going to do it in the chat. Somebody will mention that in the chat. If you know that movie, put it in there.
Leave it to Patrick.
Because all of you need to see that. Hang on, maybe I can type it in real quick. Movie. The Death of Stalin. Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah, you guys need to see that movie. It is hilarious. Because like they do all these scenes where people are getting executed by Stalin's hit squads, and it's like right before they're shot, they all go, "Praise Stalin! Glory to Stalin!" It's pretty funny. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, no, it's called The Death of Stalin. Like Flippy told me about it like 2 years ago, and I watched it. It was hilarious. Anyway, Stalin authorized murders of millions of people who were perceived as disloyal to the Soviet government and the Communist Party. She said Putin may be deliberately leaning into Stalinist-inspired messaging because the late Soviet dictator's popularity is actually on the rise. It's not because he was cool, it's because he had good hair. Come on. You're a bald fuck that's sawed off at the knees, and this dude is a runt, but at least he's got good hair and Mario's mustache. Like, he looks cooler than you. That's why his popularity is on the rise. It wasn't his politics. Anyway, more than half of the country viewed Stalin as, quote, a great leader during polling last year. I'm sure those are the same people that he would have had offed. Anyway, and in 2017, Putin was viewed as one of the most outstanding figures in Russian history, outranked only by Stalin. Over the years, Putin has painted treason as the most heinous of crimes. This is why he has authorized assassinations and poisonings of former intelligence officers like Alexander Litvinenko and Sergei Skripal, who became turncoats and served as double agents for the U.S. and Western intelligence. Dmitry Ivanov, a 22-year-old anti-war activist from Moscow, told Reuters that within hours of Putin's remarks, his mother found threatening graffiti outside of their apartment. "Don't betray the motherland," it warned. He told the outlet that at least 3 other people, 2 activists and a journalist, found similar graffiti that evening. Natalia Bugayeva, a non-resident National Security Research Fellow at the Institute of the Study of War in Washington, D.C., said Putin steadily progressed from an authoritarian towards totalitarianism over his 20 years in charge. He has a strong control of the flow of information with Russia and effective security forces capable of clamping down on protests quickly with minimal resources. They're just really good at killing people, right? That's what it's saying. He's probably got that Chechen bastard fighting for him. But he could face risks if he overextends his resources. You cannot be a Stalin without an oppression regime large enough to act. He's still very strong, but this is the first time I think there will be a challenge there to act on his increasingly authoritarian agenda. The situation hasn't immediately made Putin's grip on the country vulnerable. However, it does mean that there are vulnerabilities if someone were to take advantage of them. Like, these are all people who keep egging someone on for a coup, isn't it? The repression security services are used to comfortable living, the repression security services are used to comfortable living and needed to be economically supported. I think this is the first time where that might be called into question because of the effects of the sanctions. They might make it challenging for Putin to feed his whole repression regime. Even so, Putin's aggressive denunciation of traitors could solidify his control without a new red terror by simply driving people out. I think he's betting on the following.
First, keep only those in Russia who subscribe to his agenda, or those who may not subscribe, keep them silenced or marginalized, and drive everyone else out. Or kill them, whatever. Anyway, pretty much what they're doing is these folks are trying to incite a coup. They're trying to tell you Russia's bad. Well, Putin's bad, right? And they're trying to tell you that he's drawing inspiration from dictators whose regimes ended rather poorly, obviously. Joseph Stalin was like, okay, sorry, I'm kind of battle-brained. Adolf Hitler is sort of responsible for the death of what, a little over 7 million people? 6 million of them for sure were Jewish, but about 7 million people. Joseph Stalin killed over 20 million of his own people before, during, and after the war. Who's worse? This guy's drawing inspiration from that guy. He doesn't have any friends. He's got almost no allies. And everyone's still afraid of his Cold War persona, being the once head of the Stasi in East Germany when he worked for the KGB. But you also got to remember, this guy grew up poor in a very small town. Joining the KGB was like joining the military in North Korea. You took the job or you didn't eat. So he took it very seriously. And he was impassioned and he got good at it. And now he's just got the reputation of a 50-year-old stigma of a ghost he used to be. And they're still scared of him. Rightfully so. He's still got his finger on the button, right? Anyway, I think his days are kind of numbered. And I think the person who's going to actually save Russia is currently sitting in a Russian prison. And his name is Alexei Navalny. I mean, he must have been dangerous to Putin's regime because he's been poisoned and he's been irradiated. And the only reason he's still alive now is because his lawyer, I think, works for Interpol. And every time he comes to visit his client, he gets to hand him his phone, and Navalny gets to send out social media messages from jail. Now the biggest problem is, and I've said this before, but I think this whole conflict is a fascinating experiment, or a microcosm of reasons why our Bill of Rights are so important here in the United States. Because in the Soviet Union and in Russia, you can be arrested, disappeared, killed, or worse. And there's worse things than being killed because they can kill your whole family. For exercising your First Amendment rights. Because they don't have a First Amendment. And if they did want to come and take you away, you had no way to defend yourself. So they would violate your Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights for using your First Amendment rights, and you had no Second Amendment to protect yourself. That's the plight of the average Russian citizen. The people that we're trying to say right now aren't the problem. You know, the people that are 25 years old or younger that never knew communism, the ones that grew up with Starbucks and McDonald's and all that, those guys are not the problem. It's the outliers. I'm sure there's a couple of neo-Ruskies, you know. If he wants to keep using Nazism as a shit label, then I think we should start labeling his society, his neo-Slav Russian commie, you know, shitlords. There's probably a few, but they're not the majority.
No, but there is a battalion of Russians that are white supremacists,
Yeah,
neo-Nazis
yeah,
in Ukraine currently.
they are the Wagner group. We talked
No,
about them a
no.
week ago.
This is like legit Russian army.
I know.
No, not Wagner group.
Well,
This is not the same group I'm talking about.
no, but they do answer to that guy. I mean, he's probably the ones who trained them, to be honest. Either way, I think we should start putting the labels on them that they deserve, essentially.
I
Either.
heard that. I heard that was actually Russian propaganda.
What,
This is
the
being
Wagner
spread
group?
No, the fucking whole Nazi thing.
Oh,
they're
of course it
fighting
is.
Nazis.
Yeah, of course it is.
It's just to make them look better than, you know what I'm saying, than the other guy.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to
And
say
'cause
whatever
we
they
all
need
know
to justify their action.
Well, the thing is, the media here is a fucking propaganda machine.
Yes.
And that's why I'm like, so is Russia. So if anybody's a fucking Nazi, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to go around calling people Nazis. Sorry, let me just reel that. But the point I'm making is that I heard that there was a couple of extremist militias,
Mm-hmm.
and that when Ukraine like adopted their First Amendment right or some shit like that, I may be completely wrong, but supposedly when they adopted the militias it was under the guise of they're going to First Amendment right that shit and let everybody in.
Mm-hmm.
But there was somebody, or there was some militias that were running a certain flag that was seen as Nazi-esque. But I mean, let's be honest. It's like anybody can be, come up with something and then be accused of Nazi-esque if it's got enough things that are close enough. You see what I'm saying? Like anybody can see what they want to see.
Yeah, but can't they
saw-
come up with something original instead?
No.
I mean,
No, I'm not trying to defend anybody. I'm
Right,
definitely not, and I'm not condoning anybody like doing that shit. I'm just saying I'm not gonna buy into the hype of the propaganda machine, which is the news or Russia or
mhm.
Anything they say, you probably should question.
Yeah. Never take anything from just one source. Like, most of the stories I got here, I try to grab from at least 4 or 5. Some of them, like, I try to keep the human interest stories out because they don't really fit the timeline. They're more to try to, like, persuade you or pull your heartstrings kind of a thing, right? Every once in a while I'll throw one in if it falls into the timeline, but most of them don't. Like, for instance, tomorrow and Sunday shows, they tend to be a little shorter because most of the journalists out there, that's when they write the human interest stories in bulk. So just as a warning for the rest of you guys, if you're here tomorrow, it's probably going to be a shorter show just because of that. But it's been like that for the last 3 weeks. It's nothing new. But I mean, the whole thing about like neo-Nazis and neo-Stalinists or whatever, it's like, why don't you guys try to create something of your own and stop LARPing about with, relics of your grandfather's bullshit? Then again, I'm sure I just triggered a Civil War reenactor. Sorry, I didn't mean that.
You
But-
triggered a thought on my mind.
Huh?
Speaking of your grandfather's shit,
Yeah.
okay, Marilyn Monroe, excuse me, Manson. Marilyn Monroe, that's like your grandfather's pinup girl, right? But kind of hot to like every generation, right? Because like you could
Yes.
just like anybody could pull up Marilyn Monroe and find like some picture real, like I'd probably
Mm-hmm.
XYZ that. But
Mhm.
anyway, I digress. Well, the point I'm making is, speaking of your grandfather's pinup, imagine how fucking fucked up it would be if Marilyn Monroe hadn't died a whatever death. I'm not going to get into the conspiracy of how she died, but the point, imagine if she grew to the ripe old age that he was. How fucked up and irrelevant and unfuckable and unsex iconic she would have been if she'd have grew to the age of Betty White.
I don't know, man. Raquel Welch was still looking pretty darn good until her, 70s?
I don't know who that is.
You don't know who Raquel Welch is?
Hmm.
65 million
DM me a picture
BC.
when you get a chance.
That iconic photo of a woman dressed up in like animal furs.
I don't know.
I'll have to
I don't
show
know.
you.
Send me a fucking DM at some point, and I'll
Okay.
judge it from there. But that's like something that like has been on my mind recently. It's like, bro, think of how irrelevant the name would be, because that's your grandfather's pinup girl. That ain't nothing that's like our generation. It really wasn't our dad's generation. You know what I'm saying? That was probably our grandpa's generation. It was like, oh, fucking Marilyn Monroe.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, she's all right. She ain't nothing you'd be like, nah, fuck that. But it's just odd. You get what I'm saying? How she died at like a very fuckable young age, but you look at back and it's like, bro, those pictures are black and white. Like,
Oh, it's called 1 million years BC. My bad.
she could literally be Betty White, and like, you know what I'm saying? No, because I don't know what Betty White looked like 50 years ago.
Hmm.
I have no fucking clue. She could have been fucking Marilyn Monroe.
I got the picture for
But-
you.
Here's a unrelated note. So I've got all these fucking. Remember, I think we talked about the Croatian AK mags. You had really good luck with them, and I had really bad luck. But I kept them all because I was like, you know what, spare parts, the spring and the follower, or like the floor plate. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's some shit there.
Sure.
That could be reused. Like the problem I had with these was I had to file them down so bad to fit that they wouldn't feed properly. But it just occurred to me. I was like looking around, like, oh, do I have any empty mags? I wanna do some mag, like not really dry fire, but some like dry fire type reload drills. You get what I mean?
Sure.
And I totally hit the jackpot. I was like, holy shit! I got like 4 Croatians. I think this is a Romanian that the feed lips are damaged. I just need to, I don't know, take a wrench or some shit and fix that. An adjustable crescent wrench. The feed lips, straighten that out maybe. And a 20-round Korean. One of those South Koreans. They're like way too shiny for the finish. I digress. So anyways, take those, if you have any shit AK mags or AR mags, instead of ditching them, save them for the spare parts like I talked about. There might be some salvageable one day you need. But what you can do is take some like blue painter's tape, wrap that motherfucker around it, and then write on it like, you know, dry fire mag.
Sure.
And now you have like mags dedicated to reload drills. Yeah.
Just for like, you can drop them, you know, in rough environment. You wouldn't feel bad if they got dented or whatever.
Yeah, they're trash. I mean, just, you know, literally, they're just extra mags to drop on the ground. You got it. Awesome, man.
I used to have a couple
like
of.
I just figured that out.
I had a couple of old like ASC Steelies for my AR, and I wrote pass mags, and they were the ones that didn't quite work so well or whatever. And I always kept pass mags for those people, like, you know, let's say the boog kicked off, and some asshole I didn't like was like desperate for help or whatever. I'd just like, oh sure, here, have a couple of these. Good luck. Anyway. Alright, so we have hit 2.5 hours. I did run out of stories, and I think it'd be a good time to go ahead and play this. So, I want to thank you all for being in the audience and keeping the chat very active as usual. I do appreciate that. I like to thank all my panelists who did make it today, including you, Mr. FNH, who finally made it for a whole show and you didn't even fall asleep through it.
Fuck yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah. Anyway, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're regular here, welcome back. Either way, check out my other playlists and see if my other interests might be of interest to you. Also, I've got another gun review video coming out for you Sunday. I'm trying to pace them out once a week so I don't bombard the whole channel with them just all at once. I want to take the time to thank you all for watching. This was The War Room. This was day 23. Slava Ukraini, and we'll see you tomorrow. Later.
Go look at the Mr. FNH Instagram. You fucking heard this motherfucker.
I let that go in there. I like waited